But first, I actually want to talk to you. How are you feeling about getting back to what they call normal? Going back to work, going to a friend's house again, seeing family, doing things that we weren't really able safely to do for over a year. Is it giving you anxiety, or are you like me? Are you jumping back into life head first? I want to hear from you. 313-577-1019. That's 313-577-1019. So you can sound off on this. These are your airwaves. And to help guide us through this conversation about anxiety of getting back to the new normal is Andrea Orsini, the Day One Director with Oakland Family Services. Day One is a therapy program that helps families and gives them coping strategies to improve their mental health. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me on Culture Shift.
Thanks for having me.
Oakland Family Services has played a big role in my life over the years, so it's a huge honor to have you on these airwaves, and I know a lot of people have used it over the years as well. But let's talk about this idea of anxiety of getting back to normal. First off, can you just sort of define what you're hearing from people and what they're nervous about?
Well, so right now, really, it's about sort of an apprehension and an anxiety about leaving our space, leaving home, which we have really come to understand as our sanctuary, right? The answer, or what everybody was saying, is stay home, stay safe, keep everybody safe. So inherent in that message is that the opposite of that, being out in the world, is really unsafe. And so right now, people are really trying to figure out how to effectively negotiate that understanding and that process of returning to the workplace.
Yeah, that's the big one, because today I think is the first day that employees can return to the workplace here in Michigan. Right. So this conversation ended up being way more topical than we've been planned for. But I mean, I don't know. What are people really saying about it? I mean, what are they actually fearful of, even if, they're fully vaccinated?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things. I think that, first of all, there's a social component, right? We've been staying home, we've been pretty isolated, and now we're being asked to go back to our workspaces and really be in that social environment that we've been out of for over a year. So just that idea of being in close quarters with people, having those social contacts again, is a little bit off-putting because we're a little bit out of practice, to be honest. We haven't really been doing that. And as much as we want that, on the other hand, because it's something that we haven't been doing, it's really quite anxiety provoking. I think the other piece too is that there's a little bit of professional uncertainty right now. So, people are wondering, what does this mean for my job? How will my job look different? Will it be the same? Will things change? Will the expectations of my employer change? How will that change? And how will those changes affect me and my family? So those are really the two big areas that people are presenting with right now.
And Andrea, when we lift up the floorboards on this topic, change is really the origin of that fear. I mean, we've gone through massive tidal waves of change in the past 15 months. And I don't know if you know this about the human condition, but we tend not to like change so much.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think that we have gotten so used to all of these multiple changes, and we don't necessarily have the opportunity to really fully recover and get ourselves into a set routine, which is something that we like as human beings. And then something changes, right? The governor changes the rules, or the CDC comes out with a new guideline, or our employer says, hey, on Monday, we're going to start shifting folks back to in-office work, lots of different things. And what does one change mean for all of the other systems that we have going on in our lives? What does this change mean for my kids? What does it mean for my relationship? What does it mean for my friends? So it's not just one change, it's multiple layers of change.
We're going to talk about coping with that change. We're going to talk about how these families are being affected. But I think the most important thing about this conversation is to check in with you. How are you feeling about going back to work? How are you feeling about socializing again? Are you anxious about it, or are you on the opposite side of the spectrum? Are you excited to get back out there? Are you feeling kind of a obnoxious lust for life like I am? You can call me at 313-577-1019. That's 313-577-1019. And we do have a caller joining the conversation right now. Christine in Farmington Hills, you're on Culture Shift.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to express my concerns. I'm an older person, and my husband and I have been very obedient, let's say, about following all of the precautions during the COVID time. And we felt like all of the decisions and recommendations that were being made were based on science. We kept hearing that phrase, this is based on science. Then one day, about a month ago, the president walks out into the microphone area and he takes off his mask and announces that we don't need to wear masks anymore. And the CDC has done a very similar thing with their guidelines, and so has our governor. And I'm not hearing that phrase. This is based on science. We've decided to do this because. So I'm having a very difficult time trusting what's going on and becoming obedient to it. We're still very cautious. We still wear our masks because we're concerned.
Christine in Farmington Hills, I really appreciate that phone call. Very thoughtful indeed. I'm going to bring that to you, Andrea, because I think another element that we're talking about is trust. You know, I mean, trusting what we're hearing. Can you talk a little bit about anxiety around trusting news and restrictions and everything that Christine just brought up?
Well, I would agree. I think that there is a little bit of a disconnect. People are saying, you know, where is the science? Because that was such a key phrase that we were hearing everywhere, right? I think that being able to trust our fellow community members to follow some just common sense, what we've come to know is common sense guidelines, right? Wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. Keep a personal space. Keep your social distance. I think that for those of us who have really adhered to that and like Christine was saying, listened to the science and followed all the rules per se, it is a little bit anxiety provoking for people to be very uncertain. Where is this coming from? Is this based on science? And really the reality is that as we increase our vaccination rates, it is science, right? There is, according to what I'm understanding, a decreased likelihood that infection will happen because there's more and more people being vaccinated.
Let's talk a little bit. We're going to get back to callers here in a second, and that number is 313-577-1019. That's 313-577-1019. But I do want to bring up this element of coping with it. I mean, do you have some advice for people how to deal with this anxiety?
Well, I think the first thing is really we need to plan for it, right? For people that have a little bit of apprehension, rather than just diving in full force, think about what is going to be best suited for you and for your family and for your transition. Some people, like you, Ryan, are ready to jump right in, both feet, get going. Other people need to dip their toes in the water. And in reality, most employers are being fairly flexible around wanting to make sure that this is a smooth transition for their staff. That's because really a happy and focused employee is a good employee. They perform better. They're more focused when they're working. They want to stay at the job. All of those things are key indicators for employers. So most of them are going to really want to work with people. So planning is really the first thing. I think the other thing is that we want to look for the positives about returning to the workspace, right? We want to look for that reconnection that we get, that interpersonal relationship building that has fallen to the wayside over the past 15 months. We want to get back to looking at what was really good about being in the office. Things like cooperative learning, bouncing ideas off of one another, being able to just run down the hall and ask a person a quick question, reconnecting with the people that we provide service to in some cases, reconnecting to vendors, reconnecting to visitors, reconnecting ourselves to our community. Those would be big two things.
Andrea, I really had to think for a moment. I was like, what was the good thing about being in an office? But you raised some good points. You definitely raised some good points. We're talking to Andrea Orsini. She is the Day One Director with Oakland Family Services. And if you're not familiar, Day One is a therapy program that helps families and gives them coping strategies to improve their mental health. We're talking about getting back into the swing of things. You know, as the world is becoming, or at least the United States is becoming more vaccinated, especially here in Michigan, things are opening back up. You're seeing more people go out and try to return to normal. But that new normal we're experiencing might be causing you a little bit of anxiety. So I wanted to talk to you, and you have not been shy about calling us. Thank you so much for everyone that has reached out. We're going to start going through some of these calls right now. Is it Deanna in Pontiac? You're on Culture Shift.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
So it's interesting because I've already actually gone through this. I recently started back at, it's a new job, but it was an old job. I was there in 2015 and recently started back. It's a project-based housing authority in Detroit, and so you can't really do that job remotely. You have to be very hands-on with the clients that we see. So I have had to get back to, interacting with folks every day and working in an office environment with other people, and it was kind of exhausting. And I had forgotten how taxing interaction with other people can be. So, yeah, and I, for the first 3 weeks, I was coming home like, why am I so tired? I'm taking naps. I'm not a nap person. And then I realized, I was tired from talking to people all day and interacting, and it's a totally new thing for me.
Deanna and Pontiac, that's a really great point. I mean, that socializing for a lot of people can be exhausting. I mean, it's kind of you're giving your energy over to someone. You might be talking about something that's difficult. And let's be honest, sometimes talking to your coworkers is just kind of painfully awkward. I'm not talking about anyone here, I promise. But Andrea...
Just navigating,
Sure.
all that stuff, all the different personalities, for sure.
Absolutely. Andrea, what would you have to say to Deanna and Pontiac about that?
Well, what I think is really important for all of us to remember is that the other bonus of sort of returning to the workspace is at the end of the day, you get to shut that off, right? And you get to go home and you can spend some time enjoying the things that fill you back up, that give you energy, right? Whether it's, meeting a friend for dinner, whether it's playing with your kids, whether it's going to the gym, whatever it is that kind of restores your energy, that being able to go to work and then come back home really sort of forces you to be a little bit more mindful of maintaining a good work-life balance and figuring out what it is that does support you and re-energize you so that you can go back and do it all over again.
Let's go ahead and talk to James in Waterford. You're on Culture Shift.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just had an interesting observation yesterday. I've had both my shots for quite some time, and I've done some air travel. I'm really ready to get back, like you said, to normal, whatever that's going to be. But I went to a Myers yesterday, and when I went in, I actually had my mask in my pocket, but just to double check, I asked, what's your policy? And they said, if you're vaccinated, come on in without a mask. Out of a couple hundred people I saw, maybe there were 3 or 4 people without a mask in that store.
So how did that make you feel? I mean, did you regret going maskless?
Kind of, yes. I felt out of place, and I felt like something just wasn't right. And there were a lot of elderly people in there, and I'm sure most of them have had the vaccine. So just to double down, okay, I went to a Home Depot, and I did the same thing. I asked them when I went in, same thing. Everyone's wearing a mask in the store. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it is kind of... I'm fully vaccinated as well, and I know a lot of people are, but the mask is still kind of like my blankie, if you will. It's my comfort thing. Like, I'm not ready to give it up, even though I feel pretty safe out in the world. And James in Waterford, thank you so much for that call. Andrea, I think it kind of comes to there's a lot of uncertainty because you don't know everyone's status out there.
Exactly.
And that can create anxiety too, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. I think that by and large, the people that I know, even though they are vaccinated, they don't know anybody else's status. And they're choosing to err on the side of caution, to say, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what's going on, what your status is. It's not my place to ask you. And I'm not quite ready to open myself back up. Even though I know I'm vaccinated, I'm not ready to take any chances, and I'd rather just err on the side of caution. And that's pretty normal. I mean, this is a transition period, and I think that we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace and say to ourselves, we have to ease into this process. It's not an all or nothing right away. Typically, when we make a change like that, it is very, very anxiety provoking. It's easier for a lot of folks to just sort of take baby steps into the transition.
And Andrea, I see a lot of people wearing buttons that say I'm vaccinated as kind of a way to put that information out there. Mm-hmm. I actually tried that, and I didn't like the amount of attention it brought to me, because everyone was sort of asking about it, and it's a personal question. Why is it so personal, though?
Well, I mean, aside from the idea that it's, personal health information, right? I mean, nobody's asking you if you were vaccinated against the measles or if you had chicken pox. That's usually a conversation you just have with your doctor, right? So asking somebody or putting it out there for public consumption, so to speak, is a little bit different than what we would sort of do under any normal circumstance, right? Pre-COVID, none of us walked around, well, most of us, I should say, probably, didn't walk around with our vaccination list saying, here, I've been vaccinated against all of these major diseases, right? So now putting that out there in a button, or even to go maskless, that kind of does draw an attention to a person that maybe they're not necessarily comfortable with.
Let's go ahead and get a couple more callers in here. Gary, I'm not sure what town you're in, but thanks for calling Culture Shift.
Hi, my name is Gary. I'm in Redford. I'm a young father of 4, all of them under 10, and I work in a bar. What scares me the most about things transitioning, and I wish I would have had the forethought to write down who said this, but I was reading a report that said that the CDC basically is doing this on a hope and a prayer that this is going to cause more people to get vaccinated. Now, I got vaccinated. The owner of the bar said, listen, I can't force anybody to get vaccinated, but think of it this way. We see 100 people, 200, 300 people a week. Even if the vaccine isn't for you or it doesn't work, you're still taking other people's lives in your hand. So if you wouldn't mind, please get vaccinated so we can make sure that the people that we know and love that come and see us every day don't get hurt by our, transgressions being at the bar. Now here it is. They're opening things up. We don't know if people are vaccinated or not. They're coming into the bar. I don't know if I come in contact with them, if anything lingers on clothing or any materials that I'm bringing home. So I'm worried, and I don't know what to do.
Gary, I'm curious, you're still wearing your mask behind the bar?
Yes.
And what's it like dealing with the clientele? Are they following the rules, or what's that situation been like for you? Because I know there's been a lot of pressure put on bartenders and service industry workers beyond the pressure that was already there.
Well, so the part of the reason for us being vaccinated is we are a small neighborhood bar, and we deal with a lot of older gentlemen who should have been vaccinated first, but some of them were so afraid they didn't want to be vaccinated. So our bar catered to a lot of the ones who couldn't get vaccinated, so we were always wearing masks and always using our hand sanitizer. So now here it is. More people are coming into the bar, and we don't know. Our cleaning practices are still the same. Our sanitizing practices have gone up in the last week, but we're still not sure.
Definitely a lot of uncertainty, but a huge theme of the conversation we're having with Andrea Orsini, the Day One Director at Oakland Family Services. Gary in Redford, thank you so much for the call, and definitely be safe out there. Let's get another caller in the mix. Terry in Almont, you're on Culture Shift. Terry, you there? Looks like we're missing Terry's. Let's go to Deborah in West Bloomfield. You're on Culture Shift.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's on your mind?
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm kind of in a quandary as to what to do about friends who don't want to get vaccinated in terms of being around them. And I know that can be a choice, but in some circumstances it might not be a choice. It might be work-related, and you do have to be around them. So how do you deal with friends and still maintain a friendship when you each feel so differently and they refuse to be vaccinated?
Deborah, that is the $1 million question. That idea of social pressure, social shaming, dealing with friends who may have a different approach to it than you. I really appreciate that question. And Andrea, I think that's how we're going to wrap up. I mean, how would you respond to that?
Well, again, I mean, it's an individual dance, so to speak. I think that this is one of those areas where in most cases it's an agree to disagree. And I'm going to do, speaking for myself, I'm going to do what I think is going to be best for myself and my family. If I know that somebody is refusing to be vaccinated and they have whatever their reasons are, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure that I'm masked up, that I'm keeping social distance, and that I am demonstrating and encouraging my own freedom to be able to go and do lots of things that perhaps this other person might not be able to do because of their choice to not be vaccinated.
Absolutely. That's Andrea Orsini. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And real quickly, just to follow up on that, it made me think of a guest that we had, Dr. David Camp, who's actually from Detroit. And we talked to him about how do you deal with family members that might have different political thoughts than you or might have different opinions about COVID. And he said, you know, you don't want to argue with them. You want to get to empathy, but at least start out with curiosity. Ask them, what are the things that have happened in your life that make you think that or make you feel this way? And that can usually be a better way to have a conversation. Would you second that?
Absolutely, 100%. Always wanting to enter a conversation with a curious mind.
That's Andrea Orsini, the Day One Director with Oakland Family Services. Day One is a therapy program that helps families and gives them coping strategies to improve their mental health. We're going to get this conversation up over at WDET.org. Huge thank you to all of our callers. Incredibly thoughtful questions. You make this station and show what it is. So thank you so much. And Andrea, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about all this anxiety we're feeling about the new normal.
You're very welcome anytime. Thanks, Ryan.